Good morning, friends. Welcome back to She's At It Again. My name is Tanya, and today, turned off hot again. It's about the middle of August right now, central Arkansas, and we got the humidity going too. So we're going to cook something again on the front porch in the slow cooker. Today it's going to be a pork loin, and I bought one that is about 4.5 pounds, and I only need 2.5 pounds of it. So first of all, we're going to cut that thing almost in half. Then we're going to saute it a little bit, add very few ingredients to it, put it on the front porch, and it's going to cook all day. Then I'll come back and show you the final product at the end. Now, I don't need this until Sunday. Right now it's Thursday, but this is going to be for Sunday at noon. And if you're like me, you go to church and you come home and you're in a mad rush trying to get things done, especially if you have guests coming home with you, which we do really often, and we love it that way. But what I want to do is get this made ahead. I can put it in a casserole dish and just heat it up that morning, keep it warm until we get back home. So follow me as we make a front porch slow cooker pork loin. So here we go. Okay, here we have our pork loin, and like I said, this is about 4.5 pounds, and we're going to take this out of the packaging and put it on our cutting board. I like these vacuum bags simply because they're pretty puncture proof, and I'm not afraid of it dripping anywhere, but just getting into it and getting the product out is sometimes a trick. I have doggies under my feet. Yeah, they have two favorite places in my kitchen. One is the squishy rug in front of my sink, and the other is the squishy rug in front of my stove. So, all right, so we're going to cut this about in half. Like I said, I need about 2.5 pounds. So I'm going to check and see which end of this looks better to make some pork chops with. So we'll use the other part for just making pork chops. I'll cut it about right. Yeah, I'll cut it about right here. I'm going to put what's left in a different bag, and then I'll address the pork chop situation later. I'll cut that up when we're closer to time to needing it. I don't want to touch this anymore than I have to, so I'm doing the doggy poop bag method here. If you have a dog, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to stick this part in the refrigerator. This part is going to go over with us to the counter and to the island and make up our spice mix. So let's go over there. All right, so in a bowl big enough to where you're going to put your pork loin in, we're going to mix up our spices. But before I do that, I have my cast iron skillet on the stovetop. I'm going to turn the burner on, and we're going to get it pretty hot before we get started, because we're going to sear that on all sides before we put it in the slow cooker. I have a little bit of good quality bacon grease in there. So in our bowl, we are going to combine a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of dried sage. Now, anytime you see me using it out of this bottle as opposed to one with a store brand on it, it's because I buy them at our bulk grocer and just buy it per ounce, just ever how much I need. Half teaspoon of crushed rosemary. And 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Not a lot of seasonings there. You probably have most of those in your cabinet. Just mix those around. While we're over here and my hands are relatively clean, I have 2 cups of good chicken broth, chicken stock. Actually, this is chicken bone broth in this cup. And if you are curious about how to make your own chicken bone broth, we will attach a link to that video in the description of this video. And it is not a hard process. If you have a slow cooker, there you go. And it's nice to make it in the summertime because, again, you can put it out on the front porch and it doesn't compete with your air conditioner. So to these 2 cups of chicken broth, we're going to add, let me see what I wrote down, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And this is just pure lemon juice. No additives to it. We're going to add this to the meat right after we put it in the slow cooker, before we put it outside. All right, we'll set this aside so I don't forget it. Hopefully if it's right there in front of me, I won't forget it. All right, we're going to take our pork loin, just kind of roll it in this. And it's not just an abundance of seasoning. It's not like you're putting a dry rub on it to where it's just coated in it. It's just going to give it a little bit of flavor. All right, I'm going to wash my hands real quick. I'll make sure that burner's up high. Not high, but kind of higher. But I'm going to wash my hands because I don't want to touch that again. Hopefully they'll stay clean for a minute or 2. All right. I'm going to turn the camera off. Actually, I'm going to get another camera and set it up to put over there so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. My little helpers. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Turn as many lights on as I can get on. Now you don't need to sear it a long time on each side. Just enough to give it that little bit of a browning. Okay, we're going to turn our burner off, go put it in the slow cooker. All right, here's our meat that's searing on there. The handle on this is not necessarily hot, but I don't want to risk having to grab it in a spot I wasn't counting on grabbing it on. All right, we're just going to pour this mixture of chicken broth and lemon juice over it. And that's it. That is it on the ingredients. So now once this does finish cooking out on the porch, we're going to put it to cook on low, and that's going to cook for about 8 to 10 hours. If you want to cook it on high, you can cook it between 4 and 5 hours, but it's just up to you. Either way, if it's in the wintertime where you like that heat in your house, by all means, leave it in the house. If you're in an area where it doesn't get hot, leave it in the house. It's just going to help warm things up. But if it is in the summertime, especially if you're in central Arkansas, get that thing outside. Put it on the porch, put it on the out on the sidewalk if you have to. Stick it in the garage, just someplace where it's not competing with your air conditioner. I know I say this in every video and you're sick of it, but just in case you're tuning in for the first time, this is all about just making good decisions on cooking things without just blowing your air conditioner up. All right, we're going to put our lid on it. Now, I wouldn't necessarily have to have a slow cooker this big. It's not like it's going to expand or need something else added to it. It's just that the other one I have is kind of an upright one, and I would have to stand it on end to get it to fit in there just right. So this one will be fine. And like I said, we're going to cook this for about 8 to 10 hours on low. And when we come back, we're going to make a gravy out of this, but that won't happen until probably, I don't know, we might do that on Sunday morning or something like that. So we'll do that at a different time. But really, all you're going to need for the gravy extra is about 2 cups of this reserved gravy out of here, and then some cornstarch to thicken it up, a little bit of salt and pepper, and you got it. And this is going to just basically shred with a fork. It's going to fall apart just like good meat's supposed to. So we're going to put this out on the porch, and we'll come back and hopefully show you a finished product by the end of this video. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to make the gravy to go on our pork loin. I have it in the oven heating up. Right now it's Sunday morning. We're about to leave in about 15 or 20 minutes, but I think I have time to get the gravy made. So I'll show you how to do that. We'll just keep it warm while we're gone. And I just turned the burner on underneath this. We need 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. My pan's not hot yet. We have our 2 cups of the liquid that was reserved from cooking the pork loin here in this. And I'm just going to pour just a little bit of this out right now. And don't ask me why, but it just doesn't work if you pour the cornstarch on top of the liquid. You have to pour the liquid on top of the cornstarch. I know that sounds silly, but if you pour the cornstarch on top of the liquid, it just gums up in little blobs, and it's really difficult to get them out. It's not impossible, it's just a little harder. So as you can tell, this is pretty smooth. Sorry for the shadow on there, but you can smooth it out a whole lot easier if you'll put the liquid on the cornstarch. So in other words, put the cornstarch in the pan first, then add your liquid. So again, this is just the reserve from when we cooked that pork loin. I'm going to go ahead and pour the rest of it in there. A little bit of layer of fat on there, which is fine. All right, I'll take this to the sink. and I don't have that much time, so I'm going to turn the burner on a little bit higher than I normally would. It's not all the way on high, but it's a lot hotter than what I'd normally turn it on if I just had all morning to do it. We'll also need to add some black pepper to this. About 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper should do. You can pour this gravy directly on your pork loin that's shredded up in the pan, or you can just put it in a container and let people pour their own on the servings of pork loin. And the reason, I guess one advantage to doing it that way is that if you decide to use the pork loin for something like sandwiches or something different than just using it as the meat entree, then you can eliminate the gravy on it. You don't necessarily have to have it on there. And here's the cornstarch that I'm using. Sometimes I have organic cornstarch. Just a minute ago I started looking for it, but I'm kind of in a hurry, so I'm using this. This is non-GMO, and that's ideally what you want to use. It's just a better choice than just grabbing some random cornstarch off the shelf at the supermarket, because most of the corn grown in the U.S. now is genetically modified, but this in particular is not genetically modified, so just a better choice. This dish is gluten-free, by the way, this meat dish. Now, if you wanted to also do a gravy and you don't have the cornstarch, you are welcome to use just all-purpose flour. Just add it the same way I did. And you might add a little bit less, maybe 2 tablespoons instead of 3 tablespoons of the cornstarch like we did. Add 2 tablespoons of flour, add your broth to it, stir it like this, and it will also make a gravy. The downside to using the cornstarch is if I get this to a point that it's thick and then I keep cooking it for an extended period of time, it actually loses its ability to stay thick. So it renders back to its very liquid state instead of being thickened. So you want to be a little on the cautious side when using cornstarch. Although it's a beautiful thickener, it's not, it doesn't have gluten in it, and it's clear. I mean, there's just all kinds of advantages to it, but you just don't want to keep heating it thinking, oh, it's just going to get thicker and thicker and thicker, because after a certain point, it just loses it and it becomes liquid again. You can always add more to it later on, but then you have a whole lot of cornstarch in there. So what I'm going to do is get this to the point of being thick. I'll put the lid on it, set it aside, and just keep it warm until we come back and then serve it like that. Okay, so your cornstarch kind of lets you know that it's fixing to start getting thick, because as you'll see, this, I'm hoping you can see that in there. It starts turning clearer. It had a cloudy look to it, but now it's clear. So once it starts doing that, you'll want to keep stirring it just so it doesn't get lumpy. And you can cook this up to 1 minute after it gets thick, but after that you need to quickly take it off the heat. You don't necessarily have to cook it for a minute, but you can cook it up to a minute and it'll keep getting thicker. Now, this is not going to get thick like frosting, but this is about as thick as it's going to be. So I'm going to show you when I stir it. I hope I'm getting this in there. Sorry if I'm not, I just can't see everything from where I am. See how I can stir it, and then when I stop stirring it, it stops moving. It doesn't just keep swirling around. So that's how you know it's thick enough. Okay, we're going to turn that off. And then we'll come back. When we get back, turn my Brussels sprouts off too. Those will stay warm. So we'll put the lid on this, set it aside, and we'll be back to finish up later. Okay, so back again real quick. I wanted to tell you what we're having for lunch. We're having that pork loin that's all shredded up, the gravy that goes on it. I made some baked rice, and we will attach the video to that in the description of this one. So I always revert back to the baked rice. Once you start baking it instead of cooking on the stovetop, I just have a feeling you're never going back to cooking on the stovetop. It's so much more flavorful because of the ingredients, but the fact that you just put a lid on it, cover it up, stick it in the oven, bake it for 30 minutes, and you're done is perfect. We're having carrot casserole. There's also SCD carrot casserole. That is, that's really good. And we'll also put a link to that in the video if you want to go back to that. I was going to make lima beans. I can't find the lima beans. We're having Brussels sprouts. I made rolls yesterday, and I made a cherry galette. I'm going to turn this around and see if you can see this because I'll probably forget to show it in the video. And I don't have a recipe for it yet, but this is going to get heated up in the oven, and that has no sugar in it. So we're looking forward to that, or I'm looking forward to that anyway. Okay, we'll be back soon and we'll serve up lunch. Okay, I just poured the gravy on this, but I want you to take a look at it. This is what it looks like. And it smells really nice. So I've got everything else in the oven and on the stovetop. It's getting heated up, and our lunch guests will be here at any time. We're gonna have a good afternoon. It's beautiful outside, so this is gonna be fun. Hope you enjoy the video. Hope you got a lot of information out of it, and we look forward to sharing something with you again next time. Thanks, guys.